We already know about clones. We already know that there are new species out there that scientists already have made and brought into the planet. So there's a very high possibility that humans were fabricated themselves by DNA structure intertwined from higher species.
Everybody, welcome to episode 65. Blue, how are you doing?
I'm very, very well today, Mike.
Awesome. Hey, what are we going to talk about today in episode 65?
One of the things we will be discussing is about the Vatican Observatory. The Vatican God-alien concept, what they perceive, what the Jesuits go into, how it's divine calling code, what they learn, and cosmetology. That concept, and as well as the Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope, how certain advocations went into the directory mode of how they had gotten certain advancements in the first place.
It is kind of crazy. I know exactly where you're heading with that, and I'm excited we're going to talk about that today. Hey, before we get started, though, I do want to thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And no matter what platform you catch your stuff on, if we're not there, just let us know, and we'll get on that platform. But we're on pretty much everywhere where you get your stuff. And speaking of stuff, this is the first time in a while we haven't matched. And we don't call each other or nothing, but we haven't matched. But both of these logo shirts here are available, and you can find where that is. You can join the cause here. You can see the link for that in the comments there. Blue, I'm real excited for 65 here. Let's get right into it.
Absolutely. As we were saying, the Jesuits, what they are involved with the Vaticans. They're involved with the Observatory for a long time. What is a Jesuit father? The former director. Consider alien life to be a part of God's creation. And that it's possible that they don't need a redemption in a way that humans possibly do. He also said that it's difficult to rule out that the existence of intelligent life on other planets in the universe. You cannot just rule that out. Where does this go into cosmetology altogether? How did they get the advancements? Where did they get the documentations? You know, besides the things that the Vatican know from underneath, the libraries, the vast books, the knowledge, you know, it always circulates around the divine. And it becomes something of a healing perspective too, in some other types of mode, or some type of control, or something of a dominance. When people hear that, they hear about the Pope, they hear about Christianity, they hear about other dominating forms of a divine formational codes of what they want to perceive God for, or maintainments of life. It goes so much deeper.
You know,
and it holds seals that people see in real life that they are not even well aware of.
Yeah, for many years I've been one that believes, just due to studying and observing, and you know, I'm not a super scholar by any means, but you know, just by common sense stuff and by looking other than somewhere where most people find their information, you got to dig deeper a lot of times. And apparently there's a lot that we don't know, and it's being locked up in that Vatican library, like we've talked about in the past, where there's knowledge that was purposely taken or removed from the Bible, or there's whole books written about that. Of course, I implore you to check those things out. So it doesn't surprise me, because how can, and I'm not going to say that all forms of Christianity have I'm not going to say that. I don't want to confuse the Vatican with all forms of Christianity is what I want to say. Okay, there's two different things there. And one, I believe, is more about control than the other. So I guess, is that what it is really all about? That when God said we're made in his image, for sure, he's not a dude here on earth. So yes, we are made from somebody that came from somewhere else, if you just think about it in a common sense way. So are we saying that it is some sort of other being that's really in control, some sort of other culture, an alien civilization? Maybe the Vatican, in their own best interest, is trying to block all this out. Is that what we're saying?
Well, the perceptions that go into hierarchy or higher races that evolve around the formational codes of the divine and the councils that run through it maintain something much deeper on its perspective feeds. And it goes to when the Vatican Observatory, who runs it. I held out the possibility of human race to actually be lost sheep of the universe. And there could be other beings who remain in full friendship with their creator. And so those entities could be in maintainment code, that the affiliated sorts are running in a higher, much more creationalism to evolutionary period, but both are intertwined. The reason why I'm saying this is I know Christians, as well as many others who believe in God, would say that they were created from God itself. And then they go into the scientists that say, and most humans, okay, who do not believe in that perceptual speed, but go by what the everyday world is, and that they go by evolution, that they evolved from apes. Now, coordinate those two perceptualized speeds and combine them. Combine that there are higher beings that created the DNA formal codes that could recreate, copy, and designated certain beings upon planetized grids. And that they have certain technologies to implement that for. We already know about clones. We already know that there are new species out there that scientists already have made and brought into the planet. So there's a very high possibility that humans were fabricated themselves by DNA structure intertwined from higher species. And that the Vatican, amongst other ancient societies of old, have maintained secrecy because of the structures of mankind. And that if they're even ready or not to accept what they really truly are as an evolutionary code.
So are you also saying then that it's very possible, and the best example I can use is my wife likes sugar in her tea. She likes sweet tea. Okay, so if you go somewhere and they don't have sweet tea, it's hard to get the sugar right. So she'll put some sugar in and she'll mix it up. And then she may have to put some more in and mix it up. And she doesn't put a ton in, but she doesn't want to put too much in. Okay, so she keeps mixing it up. Is it possible that her evolution of tea there, it's not so sweet, sweeter, and she stops right there? Is it possible that the evolutionary scale that scientists on Earth support evolution, that maybe they are indeed both right? Like maybe they had to keep adjusting things or tweaking things. Is that what we're saying here, maybe?
Yes. I mean, we have talked about technologies before that go underground, that they have maintained and managed, including peripheral matters of the circulatory Big Bang theory, or something possibly going into existence, that this equipment could create certain structures into effect, into reality, and manipulate that and manage. They only need a tiny bit of strand of some type of DNA to mix it with another to create something else. And there are ways to copy that DNA. And it goes in even to things what you said, mixing and matching. Eventually it's going to combine into something else. Humans themselves were a genetic code that were maintained from a higher species. And yes, they have defined properties within them that should be cooperated with, that regular animals don't have. And those type of divine properties know the difference between good and evil.
Does this telescope that they have still function today? Do you know?
Yes. They observe with these types of telescopes through the headquarters itself, being able to get into a range of things into the cosmos that others are not able to perceive for, and as well as keeping a scan upon those perimeters. They have even on a coordination effect, certain, I believe, up to 30 objects on the moon that they had named. And I believe this is to do with certain Jesuits. So through the observatory, they are coordinating things in the cosmos as well as either renaming or what they are prioritizing for the NSBM, which is the Night Sky Brightness Monitor. This monitor itself, it scans the views of the night to day skies. So besides the hyper advanced telescopes that they monitor, because they do have a few out there, they have these perimeters that go into the electromagnetic spectrum, and they create, and through the elevations of those spectrums itself, it can tell how hyphenated the light protocols or photons are in the atmosphere. And it can calibrate those photons and exempt to see in how long it would take through those fields and the variations itself through the brightness.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating stuff. So I saw in your show notes here, you had said something about the Department of Energy and the Department of Defense. What's going on?
Well, the Department of Energy hides some of its darkest secrets within the U.S. government. And some of that runs into intel through black projects itself. Now, they do coordinate with the Department of Defense, and they work on nuclear weaponized systems, as well as nuclear energy through industries. What gets interesting with the black projects, though, that hold through the Department of Energy is the weaponized systems that they have extracted and supposedly certain corporations have used. Now, we have already heard in the past about the DEW, directed energy weapons, and how they use a very high polarized polarity ray that impacts certain areas. Think about those similar movies, space war movies, and you zap each other with these ray weapons. Okay, think about that. And think about that expanding its bandwidth, though, and being able to hit high band perimeters. So it creates forest fires, or it creates some type of catastrophic event it shouldn't. There are also, through these type of energy weapons, that could be enacted properly and protect humankind. But there are other corporations similar that deal with energy defense streams that maintain on a negative stance. We have concern about this. Now, there have been radioactive experimentations as well that have been enacted before here. These have caused implemented deaths, and they would have been called the Demon Core, plutonium orb. 2 scientists have been killed because of it, and they had initially used Cold War human radiation experimentations. An older version of possible defensive energy systems that are not good for mankind but had possibly had to be maintained for their own usage. Now, when we go into the Department of Energy, and we know that protection is a good thing, and that we all need that, but they have gone to the point of where we need to maintain that nuclear energy in a proactive way, like something that will help mankind.
The whole while you're talking, two things came to mind. And first of all, we have talked about Dewey's before, directed energy weapons. Go back and find our shows if they haven't been canceled or blocked or what have you, about Maui, because we talked about that, where we explored the opportunity of a directed energy weapon being used in the catastrophe and the fires there in Maui. But the next thing I thought of is, and we brought this up before, in the last 75 years, we've made more advancements than we had in the previous 2,000 years. And the only thing that I know of, there's two things that I know of that collide with that timeline of about 75 years. And that's the Roswell incident, and that's us developing, atomic weapons, nuclear weapons, and so forth. So, those are the only things that have changed. So I find it weird that all these things converge, and all of a sudden we get this big jump-off point in technology. And like you said, certain corporations are given or granted these technologies. A lot of things are run through the military first. So that's where we got the internet from. So I find it very fascinating. Do we have anything to fear, do you think, about this black money, about these dark projects? Do you think it could be used against the people?
Well, like the dark market, the black market part of it, that what they initially used for defensive projects against as a mass weapon is not a good thing. And if it goes into the wrong hands, going to be for everyone. But when they go in and they incorporate maintaining more nuclear warheads as well, and utilizing that energy for something that's going to harm the planet, they may want to reconsider their actions. Because if we're paying attention, we might end up in another war. They are already, throughout the planet, several militaries, several departments, several corporations are already strengthening numbers on warheads, strengthening numbers on military agenda. This is not something that has to be technically placed out there. When it gets this close to the brink of war, this is where we need to take a different strategy for things. This is where we need to start stepping down and maintain better leadership protocols between each other. With all of that nuclear energy already being placed out there and is ready for impact, if they will, and we hope they don't, they need to have consideration of vital roles that could be placed out with it. And I guarantee you there are many advances already through nuclear energy and a higher indicated, even Tesla energy, that can be compacted and placed properly, that could help benefit all. The Department of Energy and the Department of Defense, yes, there are many entities out there. There are things out there that could still harm mankind, and we should utilize that and maintain it and see where it goes. But as a species, as a whole, the human race has to start protecting each other instead of harming each other, and see what can be defined through what's being placed out there. I'll say one more thing about the black world, conversation around those programs, technologies suspected to be housed deep within the classified ends of the Pentagon and its various service branches. It doesn't exceed just into the DOE. It runs into other things as well. Now, whether they're good or bad depends on how it's outletted. But eventually we need to converge all that negative aspects into something positive, because there's so much being hidden from mankind, and it includes advanced technologies that the government holds that they couldn't even fathom. The humans on the brink of extinction unless they prove themselves worthy in the divine protocol to align what's right.
There you have words from Blue Crystal and Phoenix. Man, I like it when we dive deep in this stuff, and it really, because what happens is right after the show, I got to go do more research. I mean, I do research when we talk about the show, but then I got to do more afterwards. So if you're like us and you need to hit rewind, go ahead and listen to the show again. We do that all the time. I do that all the time myself. We ready to go to the SCP Foundation?
Yes. The stairwell, SCP-087. This is interesting. Unlit platform staircase. Held upon a door, stairs deserted on a 38-degree angle. 13 steps before reaching a semicircular platform, roughly 13 meters. And the design is to a visual range of approximately 1.5 flights. So a light source is required for any subjects exploring the entity of SCP-087. And there are no lighting fixtures whatsoever or windows present. Lighting sources brighter than 75 watts have shown to be ineffective. So if you have anything brighter than that, it does not work. There is actually an extracurricular dimensional locking speed that runs into that said stairwell in its own place, and it creates a semi-lucid event that only enacts for certain objects. So it stops upon its own perimeter. It seems to absorb any excess light because of it too. Now, subjects report the distress of vocalization for presumed to be a child once they start descending the staircase. And the source of the distress is estimated to be located 200 meters below the platform. Once they start going past any attempt to descend it, have failed to bring the subjects closer back to the source. So the death is the longest explanation would be far beyond both the plausible structure of the building itself and the geological surroundings. It goes on and on and on. It is unknown, even if it has an endpoint, in which it probably doesn't. Because this, more or less, it may be maintained as a portal as well as a habitat for a certain entity and or entities. And those that are drawn into that are stuck in that type of habitat and or dimension.
So to be clear, from the photo I see here, it looks from my perception that the stairway is going in a downward angle as opposed to an upward angle, right?
It goes in a downward, so you just keep descending a staircase, but you're only working on so much of amount of a light source. Anything else going beyond that light source, the entity itself sucks it. It takes it out. So you're running in some type of maze. And those that have gone into those entities, Foundation members, they get abnormal feelings. They get reactions. They hear knocks. There had been an entity, and that's why they had locked the perimeter of the door from them. At the variable rate, they had to place padding on it. The so-called entity was trying to escape or sound like it was. So once they had placed certain padding upon it, it ceased to knock. Whatever is in here, besides what had claimed this childlike scream, which could be from the main source itself, is more or less something that's snatching other corporeal beings. It's drawing them in for its own source. Foundation members are still, they're discluded to what they can do yet. But just like many other portals out there, this leads into one habitat of one entity and or more. I would consider it class Euclid, because it's not considered a high threat danger, but it's considered something that they would have to look into and understand.
And to be clear, this is something that is contained. It's the only one known in existence, or
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. At this certain site, it's monitored. Nobody can get in it. It's in a foundation, a building site.
You know, when you before you got really dark about it snatching up children or whatever, I was thinking of those M.C. Escher pencil drawings. I don't know if you've ever seen them. No matter which way you look at it, like relativity is one and stairs is another one. No matter which way you look at it, you look like you're still going down the stairs, even though you may be.
It don't snatch children. It's more or less a childlike entity that creates some type of a scream. And what it is when they get in, they come to a certain area, so many meters downwards, they're going to run into the face of this entity.
Ah, okay.
A face with no visible pupils, nostrils, or mouth. And the nature is entirely unclear of it. That's why we said it is very much and could be very much linked up to the actual stairwell. Which documents another dimension.
So
but they said it is not the source. Well, it has been determined that it's not the source or the pleading. It is not the source of the pleading. Subjects exhibit feelings. But, so that means that this drawing, this entity, is another source itself for whatever making that screams. So those screams could be Foundation members. They could be other beings. And the subjects who exhibit feelings of intense paranoia and fear when faced with the SCP. When they face this entity itself. So yeah, that paranoia, that fear, and those trapped beings who become trapped in that stairwell could have become of the screams. Could have become of certain things trying to get out that others are hearing. This entity itself would be a draw in to what is of its dimension.
And what about this next SCP-149?
The blood flies. It is a breed of mosquito, which carries a strain of retrovirus referred hereunto as SCP-149A. It mutates in regenerating human cells into fertilized mosquito eggs. It's then injected directly into the bloodstream, just like a regular mosquito would, and it works on the nucleus of the cells and warping the DNA itself. And the first of the cells bred from these chains and resemble cysts, are concentrated on the lining of the esophagus and of the sinuses. And upon dissecting, they find the cyst are revealed to be filled with the larvae itself, acting as a protective casing against external forces. Anyone who goes through this mutation and it ends up getting these species implemented within them, once they come out then escape through the eye sockets and sinuses, the infection is fatal. You know, what do we want to choose to now believe that these entities are real? We really got to diagnose about insects already out there. That we already know that there's new species coming, but where did they come from? How did these other species be maintained? We talked about how the scientists have created certain insects or certain bugs or certain animals, rodents, whatever. Quickening the pace, yeah, these represented, they could have been a scientific and experimentation gone wrong and got loose. And their type of breeding zone are small in margin. And they're kept in monitor. There are insects out there. There are current mosquitoes that we know out there that are really big, that can cause problems for mankind. They can eat the larvae of other things. They can cause generated diseases. And people have come out to say that they're a newer type of species. Well, no. They were improvised that way. As a bioweapon, yes. Even forms of life can be maintained as some type of weapon.
Yeah,
These would be considered class Keter.
I think I could see that happening, and I think I've heard of that happening in the past. It's pretty scary stuff. Even though it looks like a scary being as an insect, that is rather large, by the way. The one you sent me the picture of. My question is do we know this is under control, or is there a chance that these mosquitoes are in my backyard?
Well, it's obviously under control because with the way mosquitoes already breed, the population of humankind would be at least in certain major areas affected. They have been post-term to certain to maintainment areas in the past, and they have kept that in check. But currently, right now, it's obvious that this would not be imposed as a problem.
Good. We don't need any more problems. We have enough problems. I like it when we do the SCP. It's fun stuff. I like it a lot, and it really opens up, and I really start to think and look at other things surrounding, that cause and effect there. What if somebody wanted to start a plague that way? I'm just saying.
There have been plagues in the past.
Yeah.
Think about it. Locusts, rats. They have brought pestilences. If you look back in the past, wouldn't the country of America and other portions where they have these pestilences hit towns, and they cause major sicknesses. How did those sicknesses ever even come to be, anyways?
Right? Crazy.
Now look, we can even go another day for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
How they have even created things to fundamentally cause a problem in towns.
Well, it's all about the big pharma. See, the big
and
companies.
Farms.
Yeah, yeah. They all work together. That's crazy. Crazy stuff.
So to the Vatican, and we have talked about the Pope, recently how the experts have accused him of harboring alien secrets in the Vatican. And they insist that it's evident that the Catholic Church is aware of the existence of alien life and has evidence. So not all of the portionalized events of what the Vatican are, even what the Illuminati are, and several other hierarchies, not all of it is considered what we call the negative. But there are major roles that run on the commitmentship of control and the outlet of the certain realms that it holds. If we can destroy the negative aspects of things and create a positive outlook and really know what's going out there and what they know, then yeah, humans can be very well accepted to what they truly are, what they represent, and what's out there above their heads and even below.
Pretty scary stuff when you think about it, because I guess if they let it loose that there's, beings from somewhere else, people may construe that to, well, what are we even dealing with you? You're the middleman. Get out of the way. Or we don't need you. Or what are you, you know what I mean? I can see where it doesn't fit their narrative sometimes. I get it, but I think it's very deceitful and very wrong to withhold those secrets from people for so long. But it's kind of like you and I talked before. Maybe it's not so long after all. You need to drip things out. You can't just unload on people. I don't know. I think 2,000, 3,000 years or so is a long enough time. Do you think it's been long enough, Blue? Do you think we need to hear all these things? Do you think we need to see all these things?
Yeah, there are good and there are bad parts of the hierarchies of the councils. And honestly, we need to tear away the bad parts of the societies that control and create something better. Because those of the races that have brought the foundations of mankind together already know the ancient laws and what that term goes through. And if we go to the renown and what they had known from a long time ago, from eons ago, they would accept that term. And yes, everything would have to go on a slow drip out there, a slow leak. But only to the fact that humans, their minds are not correctly intact enough to accept all the knowledge that has been pertained from here throughout the ages. They are only allowed incorporated ideas to be protected from them for a reason, because it's too advanced. Yes, and as well as the monitorized control system. But let's say that type of system could be redirected back again to something that humans are well aware of, that they were aware of way before now. Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope, the Vatt. It's located on the Mount Graham in Arizona as part of the Mount Graham International Observatory, operated by the Vatican Observatory in partnership, and as well as the primary mirror, which has a really bigger depth and altitude design than others. The Vatican Observatory is one of the oldest astronomical observatories in the world. Its roots dating back to 1582, but there are roots that do go back further with the Vatican that they don't acknowledge out there to the public. Now, the observatory's mission is to conduct scientific research in astronomy and related fields, including quantum sciences itself, hyper advanced technologies and improvisations that deals with cosmology. The Vatican Observatory is considered a possibility of alien life and the implications of finding it. And it doesn't contradict faith in God. And obviously with the Jesuits, the Jesuit father, Jose, said that it's possible that life exists outside of Earth. They acknowledge this. And it's not in conflict. It is not in conflict with the faith of God and the faith in God. It said if aliens were discovered, they would be considered part of God's creation, similar to other creatures on Earth. Why would they delve deep into this? They code things out there for people. And humans maybe not be aware of who and what they represent, but to acknowledge the fact that there are other divine or other higher beings out there. They may be a bit more advanced, but they have similar designs like humans would, similar laws and understanding. And with the observatory is even to delve deeper into space, not just for finding alien life, so they say, but also understanding the life forms of other planets, the lower species of that alien life, the flora, the fauna, what it can do to help for the human race in the near future, what they can know and acknowledge.
Awesome. That's awesome stuff. Yeah, no, I totally agree. You're on it. You're on it. All right. Are we ready to talk about your positions with the Federation and the Space Force?
Space Force has redefined work from home with work from Mars. Guardians of NASA had tested Martian soil to advance extraterrestrial agriculture, paving the way for future Red Planet missions. And if we're paying attention about what Mars is already pushing its own elementary scales for, the humans have a very high possibility of maintaining themselves, not just here, but in the near future, other planetary grids, other systems, and possibly utilizing good agriculture through that. More defined advancement for them so they're not getting so sick. So they're finding ways to provide that. And Elon Musk unveils UFO fighter jet that defies physics We talked about this before, haven't we, Mike?
Yep.
That anti-gravity star pod unit is so-called affiliated star seeds and other terms of events that have counseled with certain entities, certain corporations. And yes, just recently he's unveiling this is just almost exactly like that. We have warned you all, neurotech and Neuralink and utilizing the mind, that the aerodynamic pods as well as, don't be surprised, us think through the boring system soon that creates hyperdimensional movement streams and can go to other places at an easier access than what it currently is. And what more concerning part of things, though, is with Kamala Harris, obviously, and lost track of 300,000 migrant children. Woke Hollywood, City of Dreams, is a story of 12 million children who were trapped in modern slavery. Save the kids. There's a so-called movie out there. We're paying attention to it. It explains about things. Oh, it's not real. That's not happening. Is it? Every day, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people missing or being harmed or something else happening they weren't even paying attention to. And it's gotten a lot worse. Trafficking is real. And it's not just trafficking kids. They're migrating women. They're migrating drugs. They're migrating weapons. And it's escalated within these past few years. Movies play vital roles. Like we said before, stuff with Star Wars, Star Trek, or even other movies. They may have a concept, though it might not be real, but is it? Is it not real, or are there things contained already in it that is? She has got to stop. If she goes into presidency, that's that. I guarantee you. Make a leeway and conjuncture for this point and see where we can go, bring a good term for humankind instead of something negative. And one more thing is Musk, RFK Jr., claimed Vice President Harris wants to shut down X unless site conforms to government oversight. I mean, what government oversight is conformed to anything the government itself is already messed up? It doesn't even maintain its own code of ethics, and you want to mess with something that's maintained on a widespread communication line that's providing proof and truth for mankind. They want to shut that down. They don't want the truth out there.
Crazy. It's a crazy world we live in. Sometimes I feel like I'm in another, if you watched as a kid, I refer back to kid stuff and basic stuff, but I refer back to the Justice League, and it had Bizarro Superman, who's like the opposite of good Superman. He was bad. And that's why I fear we're at. I fear we're at a Bizarro world, and it's only going to get worse. Heaven forbid if that election count in those 6 states, including Pennsylvania, doesn't happen that same day. They're going to drag it out as long as they can, and I'm kind of worried, but I'm optimistic. Wow. Powerful words, though, Blue. Powerful stuff from the Space Force and the Federation. Hey, it's my favorite time. I know we call it E.T. of the week, but this one's a little different. It's a mystical creature of the week, right?
The Phoenix and or the Firebird, which are similar entities. And believe it or not, some of that role, if not most of it, runs into the Vatican, pineal gland, and the statue. But we'll get into that in a minute. The phoenix is an immortal bird that psychically regenerates, or is otherwise born again, having both the wisdom and power to maintain itself over and over again. And it's run through many cultures, including Egyptian and Persian mythology, and as well as encompasses what we have said, the Vatican, and as well as the divine. And what goes to the show of flames combustion, while others it simply dies out, decomposes, and comes back again. And more or less has regenerative powers within its own being. on a hyper scale. Now, they had talked about in Egypt that it may have evolved from the Binu, a sacred bird associated with the sun god Ra in the Nile seasonal flooding. Binu was depicted in hieroglyphs as a heron. Egyptians considered the phoenix a rare bird. So, when we go into mythology and then we go into something that's real, maybe you need to look in between, because there are realities that go into the history. And this type of species run through numerical different things. And it goes into what the Vatican I talked about, Gagana, a type of bird that this person had went into a glade to look for, with tranquility and magic at its roots. And when he reached upon it, bestowed him wisdom and power. So the Vatican pine cone in the Vatican's Cordal Delta in Pigna was originally the centerpiece of an ancient public fountain. So rediscovered in the Middle Ages, it was given pride at the place in the atrium of the old St. Peter's Basilica, moved to an iconic Belvedere courtyard in the 16th century. And it has similar to these birds there on each side with the pine cone, which really represents the pineal gland, the mind, the power, the wisdom. These birds hold the wisdom. So that power represents its wisdom, and it gains from it prosperity, peace, justice to the people. Profoundly, these types of birds, these types of entities run into the mainframe of certain things. And you go in to the healing generative age and what they have on the sides of those, the EMS trucks, medical buildings and stuff. They have like a rod with the snakes and the wings on the side. And there's a similarity to that too, because the middle's going to have like a pineal gland. That's incorporating foundations of prosperity, knowledge, and growth, and healing. So there's a good aspect of this type of entity. If this bird still exists, I'm sure it does. I'm sure that they hold it else somewhere. It creates a dominating power. Just like the human race, they got to know their own dominating power and maintain it.
I'm curious, is this phoenix something that is still around today, or it's just totally mythological?
Oh, it's around. I'm sure the Vatican and other societies hold something like that. And I'm sure they even hold their feathers. And their feathers, I don't even think they die off. A certain quality of the feathers itself. It has a DNA in it, certain type of DNA that is a much higher property than human DNA and the other type of entity itself. And it could last a long, long time.
Yeah, this is almost like two different things for me here. This is almost like the phoenix is one thing, but this thing with the pineal gland is almost something totally different. I'm just trying to, again, connect the two here. I know we've talked about pineal gland and blood and so forth in the past, and is that what this is representing?
Pineal gland is representing your third eye. The third eye, the pineal gland, the wisdom, the knowledge.
Gotcha.
It's representing the power of the wisdom and the knowledge of your third eye, of the momentum that is locked away that could be generally go forward and flow easier. And a lot of humans of their pineal gland, they calcify. They get locked away from their certain psyche awareness stream of what they already know or what they could know. And they're locked up from there. They're stuck. There are two activated sorts of the third eyes. And remembering of the mind and what it can persevere for goes through that. Humans were incorporated different than an ape. They were incorporated different than an animal. And now there are entities out there that obviously pose, and in provision to what power outlets for and wisdom. this bird, this species, it had a lot of wisdom within it. And it may have provided some type of telepathy, some type of communication that a regular avian couldn't.
It's crazy stuff. Wow. Awesome. I love it when we talk about these things because it really just blows my mind. And you don't know the Google searches I do right after we talk. I start looking at more things. It's crazy. And if you're like us, please go ahead. You can look back at previous episodes. Everything's cataloged. So when you pull up one of our episodes, you just pull up to that theme, hit the little button there, and it'll take you right to that segment of the show here. So, wow, this is crazy stuff. Episode 65 in the books. Please go ahead and like, subscribe, click on notifications, follow, all that fun stuff there. And again, if we're not where you get your stuff, let us know, and we'll be there where you get your stuff soon. Blue, thanks a lot. Wonderful stuff again in episode 65. Good stuff.
Yes, thank you, Mike.
All right, we'll see you next time.